You're gonna make it up to me. You know you are. Hello to all my wonderful fighting cats. You're watching a new episode of ElliXia's Discography Dives, a series in which we dive into the discographies of some of my favourite artists. A series in which my dress strap falls down. There we go, that's better. This season we are diving into the discography of none other than one of the greatest girl groups to ever come from the United Kingdom, the Sugababes, in the lead up to their 20th anniversary reissue of their very debut album, One Touch. This week we are talking all things 2008's Catfights and Spotlights, the last album to feature founding member Keisha Buchanan, and therefore the last album to feature any original members. Not that, you know, the media or the fans made a big deal of that. I am, of course, the titular ElliXia Q Valentine. Would very much appreciated it if you gave this video a like, or subscribed, or shared, or did anything nice to engage with the video. Today's look is inspired, of course, by the album's vibe. The cover has a nice blue, sort of dark navy blue background. This album is a little bit darker and a little bit more refined, so I thought I'd go for something a bit classic. Catfights and Spotlights was the girls' 6th studio album, released on the 20th of October 2008. It only spawned 2 singles, Girls and No Can Do. The album reached number 8 on the UK albums chart, which was not a position to turn your nose up at, but it was not as good as what the Sugababes had previously achieved. Work on this album began almost straight away as soon as Change's promo tour had finished. Despite earlier in the year of 2008, the Sugababes said they weren't going to release their next album straight away, they were going to take a bit of time on it. We had Catfights in our hands very, very, very soon after they said that. And despite not being that much of a commercially successful album, this is one of their finest, I think. Overall, the album sort of features a lot of retro-inspired songs. Got a bit of Motown, a bit of retro girl group kind of stuff going on. Now, back in 2007-8, loads of singers were doing that. That 60s girl group sound that Amy Winehouse had popularised was all over the charts at the time. It was quite inescapable actually in the UK in the late 2000s. Like, you had Duffy, you even had like Pillow and Faith and Pixie Lott as well, who came after this album. A lot of retro flavourings. Subsequently, on surface level, you could think, oh god, the Sugababes just jumping on a bandwagon now. But they do so in their own way. And this isn't like full-on retro, you know, moments. There are some songs where the retro influence is strong, but a lot of it actually doesn't really feature that. This album is very, very classy. It's vocally fantastic. And of course, we're going to dive in to the album's track listing. Beginning the album, we have the lead single, Girls. A song you will have almost definitely have heard before, even if you don't know the Sugababes. You probably heard this song because it was really heavily featured in the Boots adverts. It samples Ernie K. Doe's Here Come the Girls, which was previously used in Boots' Christmas advert campaign of 2007. And then I'm not really sure what the process was behind this song, but I'm guessing the girls thought, oh, this was good, let's sample it. Girls is quite a polarising single amongst Sugababes fans. Some people love it, some people hate it. I sit somewhere in the middle with this one. I really liked Girls at the time. I really enjoyed it actually. This was sort of the first time really where the Sugababes kind of like embraced their good looks. You know, the Sugababes never really sung about being sexy or anything like that, despite being all very good looking women. But this was like the first time they really sort of like, if you got it, flaunt it kind of attitude. Is that a properly structured sentence? I don't know. So when Girls came out, I was like, yeah, this is really good, like own it, do you know what I mean? Girl power, etc. And it is a fun song as well, you know, it's definitely got like hen party written all over it. It would also like frequently get used on shows like The X Factor, you know, when they'd have like a montage of like really good female auditionees, they'd usually use Here Come the Girls, wouldn't they, for that or something. Basically like any reality TV programme which featured a scene with loads of women, they'd be like, stick Girls on it. So on the plus side of this song, there's fun to be had with it. I also believe Keisha's middle 8 is really good when she's singing about being filled with sexuality, with or without a man I'm incomplete, and I think, yes, honey. It's explosive. That's easily the best bit of the song. I think though, ultimately, when you compare Girls to every other lead single that the Sugababes have had up to this point, it's by far the worst. Like, it doesn't hold a candle to Freak Like Me, or Hole in the Head, or Push the Button, or About You Now, or of course Overload. I enjoy Girls, but it's nowhere near on the same level. And I would actually go as far to say it's possibly the weakest song on this album as well, which is strange given that it was the lead single and it definitely had the biggest push behind it. I think another reason why some fans probably don't like it is how overused it was and how overexposed it was, especially in the Boots adverts. Because Boots adverts are regularly in syndication, aren't they? And like, sometimes a song being used in an advert is a good way for that song to get some good momentum behind it and become really successful. But it's also a very good way to just kill it off as well. A very good way to drive the song into the ground and make everyone hate it when they hear it. But Girls also was the first lead single since Overload to not reach #1 as well. It did do very well. It reached #3 and it hung around the charts for a very long time. So it was a successful song. And I think if it wasn't a successful song, it probably wouldn't have been the Boots advert song either. But yeah, Girls to me, I don't mind the song. You know, I can get down to it when it's on, but it's not a favourite of mine, and I could definitely see why some fans hate it. I wouldn't say I hate it, personally. That's just too much for me, but it is one of the weaker singles of theirs. And I know I said at the start of the video that it was one of their finest albums, and it is, bear with me, but we get Girls out of the way pretty early on, and now we're into the good stuff already on track 2. So track 2 is You on a Good Day, which is very retro flavoured, very much a girl group style song. You can picture a music video, you know, where they've all got like the beehive hairdo and they're all wearing like the same dress and all kind of like doing this kind of choreography, you know what I mean? It's very that. Excellent usage of castanets actually as well. Like within like the first 2 seconds there's a castanet and I'm like, I'm already sold. The song opens with them all checking in with each other as well. Are you ready, Heidi? Keisha, Amel, oh yeah, let's go. I love it. Lyrically, it deals with a boy who is a bit hopeless. He's a little bit clumsy. He causes a lot of problems just sort of like through his own clumsiness, but they also can't resist him as well. I mean, the first lyric is, you're messed up from your chromosomes to your enzymes. And lyrically, it's fantastic. It does great storytelling, talking about how they've racked up their phone bill by calling internationally, they've crashed their car, they've sold their favourite rims of their car as well. And when they ask him about it, he just said, yeah. I especially like in the second verse, the line, but then your new party friends call for some stripper again, I just said, fine. I love the resignation in like the girl sort of accepting like, well, I guess my fate now is to just date a massive dumbass, but he's really hot, so whatever. You on a Good Day had single written all over it. And I feel like maybe if this album had done commercially a bit better, then maybe we would have got to see it be released as a single. On to track number 3, we have No Can Do, which was this album's second and final single as well. No Can Do is a sassy little mid-tempo number, doing what the girls do best, and that is singing about a boyfriend who is trash. Lyrically, No Can Do is rather basic and straightforward, but they sell it with the vocals, and the arrangement has a very sort of like retro Jackson 5-esque quality to it. There's a great midlay between Keisha and Amel where they're sort of singing back and forth to each other, call and response, and it's so good. The video as well, they look absolutely stunning in the video. Like hair and makeup, they look absolutely gorgeous. So sleek, so polished, so glamorous, and so classy. They look amazing. And the video is interesting as well because it features them surrounded by loads of scantily clad athletic men, and they're using them as props and furniture. It makes me laugh actually because there's one bit where these men make up a car and like Heidi and Amel are driving this car, and Amel gets out this like giant map and I'm like, Amel honey, that map isn't going to help you. But I really like No Can Do. It's one of those songs I think that definitely has like second single written all over it as well. It's unfortunate, the song only did manage to chart at number 23 on the singles chart, which for the Sugababes at the time was a very low position to chart at. And it was unfortunately deemed a flop, and it did cause the album campaign to finish prematurely. Following No Can Do, no further singles were released from this album, and work on the 7th album, which of course we will discuss next week, that work began like almost instantaneously. After No Can Do, we have track 4, which is Hanging on a Star. This is kind of the other song, I think, like Girls, that maybe is a bit divisive among fans. Hanging on a Star is another sort of retro girl groupy kind of song, Andrew's Sisters style, you know, that kind of thing. It's incredibly cheesy, incredibly corny, very, very saccharine. It's so saccharine to the point where like you'd probably need a filling afterwards because it's gonna fuck up your teeth. It's very, very cutesy. It's very, very... it's objectively not a very good song, but I really enjoy it. You know, there is like a call and response bit as well in the beginning where they're like, tell me baby, baby, tell me baby, and like, it's a bit, I'm not entirely sure that like, that they can necessarily pull that kind of cutesy thing off. It's somewhat ironic actually, because this is far less mature than anything from their debut album when they were literal children. And this album is a very classy, sophisticated record. I think Girls and Hanging on a Star aside, it's a very, very classy, polished, well put together record. So Hanging on a Star is a bit of an outlier in that respect, but like, I enjoy it and I think it's fun. I can remember Pop Justice referring to it as the worst song ever recorded. I definitely think that is a massive reach, but I'd be interested to hear what they would think of it now, because this was 2008 and several awful songs have followed since. Track number 5, we have Side Chick. Side Chick is rather sort of R&B sounding, a little bit sassy. It's addressing a relationship where they basically want to know, like, where are we? Like, something is missing and they're like sort of, I need to know, are we committing to this? Are we gonna just be friends? I quite like how the lyric changes between we should just be friends and we could just be friends. It's a very Keisha heavy song, I think, as well. I mean, Heidi's barely on it, but Amel has a great middle eight as well. Two particular lyrical highlights are Treat Me Like a Yo-Yo, Bubba That's a No-No, and pulling all sorts of trickery trying to get in my knickers. I think it's great. Track number 6, we have Unbreakable Heart. This is one of my favourite songs on the album, personally. It's a little bit haunting, I think. It's got this like piano melody at the beginning that does sound a little bit unsettling, but I think it's brilliant. Lyrically, it sings about taking the risk of falling in love. The chorus says, if I walk through my whole life choosing the safe side and stay unscarred, I'll miss out on the real thing. It's all or it's nothing, that's why it hurts. Almost addresses like the fear of potentially falling in love with somebody and putting yourself on the line to get hurt again, but also the excitement and the rush of that as well. It's almost a little bit sinister in some ways. Like in the bridge goes, this is how it begins, take a smile. No, that's not right. This is how it begins, with a smile, give an inch. And it's like, almost like taunting, like it's taunting and haunting. It almost sounds a bit like that bridge is saying like, what you're afraid of, go on, do it. Are you too chicken to fall in love? Like, do it, come on. And I think it's a wonderful song. Lyrically, it's fantastic. And it could be applied to many situations as well, you know, that fear, holding yourself back. Everything you do in life is a risk. And if you don't do anything because you're scared of what might happen, then you'll never leave the house. You know, they sing what good is an unbreakable heart, and I'm saying amen. Track number 7 is one of my favorites, and this one is called Sunday Rain. This is very Motown, very big band, quite dramatic, quite soaring. Gives me a little bit of like Tom Jones vibes almost, not vocally of course, but like in terms of, it sounds like the kind of song he would sing. Addresses heartbreak and how the idea of love and relationships, they're questioning like, is it even real? Is it just a cruel trick that fate plays on you? It makes you think that you're gonna have something amazing and then you don't. As well as talking of, you know, that cycle of being in bad relationships and constantly getting messed around and breaking each other's hearts, and how with Saturday sun always comes Sunday rain. Moving on to track number 8. This is one of their best songs, I think. And it's called Every Heart Broken, formerly titled Murder One. And on initial, when this track listing was revealed, that's what it was called, but then they changed the name to Every Heart Broken, I think probably to be a little bit less murdery, I don't know. Every Heart Broken features some fantastic lyrics from the Babes and some fantastic storytelling as well. The lyrics are from the perspective of a person who every boyfriend or partner she's had, they've ended up dying in like mysterious circumstances. Obviously like heavily implied that she's killed them as well. The production's wonderful. It's got this haunting piano at the beginning that sounds very sort of innocent, but it's not. The lyrics are very sinister and it's very melancholy and mournful and almost regretful that this person who's singing the song, their relationships have all ended up in them killing the man. They list 8 boys in total and each boy was a different kind of person. The death is like related to whatever it was that boy did. Boy 2 had a law degree. He charged me with a felony. I stole his heart and pled insanity. Boy 3 worked at the cemetery. His crooked smile was kind of sweet. All things must end. Now he rests 6 feet deep. Boy 6 lived in a monastery. He chose a life of poverty. I chose Chanel, so much for chastity. Boy 7 was the don of all Sicily. He tried to kiss and tell on me, so now he sleeps with the fishes. Arrivederci, baby. And I think my favourite one is Last Boy was the director of a silver screen. He went and wrote a slasher flick just for me. When he said cut, I took it literally. I think it's a fantastic song. I think lyrically it's one of the Sugababes' best songs, and it's so effective. It's so wonderfully done. And I can just imagine this video of them like all looking sort of like mournful and wearing like funeral attire, but like, I don't know, there's some sort of twist towards it, I don't know, but it would have been a great single. I believe it was actually in the running to be the album's 3rd single, but of course, because No Can Do didn't do very well, it did end up getting cut. The next track, track number 9, is called Beware. This kind of continues on actually with the sinister theme of Every Heart Broken, but melodically this song is a lot more sinister. It's got an ever so slightly Bond theme vibe to it. Obviously if it was a Bond theme, it probably would be a lot bigger and have a lot more, I don't know, theatrical and spectacleness about it. But Beware is great. It's addressed to a guy who likes to walk on the wild side and very much gambles with his life. They're singing Beware because you don't want to mess with me. I love the verses. Amel really shines on this song. I would even possibly go as far as to say this is actually Amel's finest moment is this song. Because she takes the lead, she sings the verses as well as the middle A. She has this wonderful like purr, very sinister, very subtle as well. It's almost a bit flirtatious. I don't know, I could see her like in a music video, sort of like being sat in some like really fancy chair with like either like a glass, either like some sort of like fancy drink in her hand or like one of those cigarettes or like a cigarette holder, and just being really like watching this guy and being like, you know what I mean? I think Keisha also swoops in for the chorus and it's really good. It's a very short song, it's over quite quickly, but I think it's fantastic. We now move on to track number 10, which is Nothing's As Good As You. This song I like it. I really do like it. It is a bit on the basic side. It's rather straightforward. The lyrics are nothing particularly inventive. I mean, it even rhymes funny with money at one point. It's very much just that kind of song that's about someone who you really like and you want to be with, and feeling a bit maybe shy and a bit coy about it, but also quite excited about it. It's very, very cutesy. It's very subtle as well. And I think actually that's a welcome change after the rather 2 sinister tracks that came before it. It's quite a nice palate cleanser, I guess. And I have a soft spot for Nothing's As Good As You as well, because it very much reminds me of my first crush. This entire album reminds me of my first crush because it came out around the time that I met him. So it will always remind me of him, but Nothing's As Good As You in particular makes me feel really like, you know, little 16-year-old licks is like... So like Nothing's As Good As You is probably a little bit basic, but when it's done that nicely and that pleasantly, then I don't care. Number 11 is Sound of Goodbye. Now this song is great. It addresses the breakup from the perspective of somebody who doesn't want to break somebody's heart, but they know that they're gonna have to do it. Situation that I've been in before, even expressing sort of some regret that they wish it could be a different situation, but if they stay with this person, it's just gonna make it worse in the long run. Particularly like Heidi's line in the first verse of, there is no easy way to break somebody's heart when you know what you're gonna say will leave a mark, but I've tried and I've tried to no end. I think Sound of Goodbye captures that essence of feeling kind of empty after a breakup where no one's done anything particularly wrong, the feeling just isn't there anymore. And there's a level of almost anticlimacticness, if that's a word, because it's like, there's no huge catalyst or major reason as to why we're breaking up, it's just, I don't feel it anymore. And I'm sorry, because I know you probably still do, but I don't. And it's like, well, maybe we had all these really good memories, but now it's kind of just nothing. All you can hear is Sound of Goodbye. And closing out the main body of the album, and I think, in this case, saving the best for last as well, we have the song Can We Call a Truce? Can We Call a Truce addresses a very turbulent relationship where constantly clashing and constantly against each other, but you can't quite leave it because there are still feelings there. They still want to be with this person, but they can't be with them in the way that it's currently going. They're constantly at odds with each other. They're constantly seeing sort of other examples of relationships that are much better, and they're like, why isn't our relationship like this? This isn't how we're supposed to be. Particular lyric I like is, if we can't reconcile, then can we just not fight? And there's like a sense of desperation of wanting to save this relationship that is probably doomed, but they don't want to let it go. But they know that whatever happens, they can't continue on the way they're going because it's just going to destroy them. I remember reading a comment from somebody once, but they thought that Can We Call It True should have been this album's lead single instead of Girls. I don't really know if I agree necessarily, because I can't necessarily imagine this as the lead single, but it is I think it's easily the best song on this album, and it would have been very interesting to see it pan out, I think, if this had been the lead single, because it would have been quite a brave choice. It's kind of prophetic as well, because you've got the middle eight, which is Keisha and Amel lamenting how this relationship is going and wanting to set things right and wanting to not be fighting anymore. And I find it very interesting that this is the last track on the last album to feature Keisha as well. And it almost feels a bit like foreshadowing as to what was going to come the following year. Even though this wasn't the last song to feature Keisha, because she was on the lead single of the next album. This was like the closer of the album that she was last on, and it's a bit haunting and, I don't know, a bit chilling now, knowing what was going to come after this album. And I think it's a beautiful way to finish off this record. In the UK, we did have the bonus track of an acoustic version of About You Now, which is just a piano version of it. They did that on Radio 1's Live Lounge, and this is basically a studio recording of it, so it's more or less the same. It's lovely. It definitely adds another level to the song that previously wasn't necessarily there. It's a lot sadder than the normal version. And also on this UK version that I've got, we have She's Like a Star with Tayo Cruz. Now, Tayo Cruz released his song She's Like a Star, and the remix featured the Sugababes on it as well. It's alright, it's very 2008. It's, you know, it's a bonus track, it's not really that much of a big deal. B-sides wise, we only have one on this album as well, and actually, really, it's the last B-side to date. So there was a Live Lounge B-side, but you probably may have noticed I'm not covering those because I don't really, you know, they're just... Live Lounge B-sides almost feel a bit like just they need to fill the space on the disc. But Girls had a B-side called Don't Look Back, which is a cover. I can't remember who it's a cover by, but I'll research it and edit it in. Thank you. But Don't Look Back is very acoustic. It's just an acoustic guitar, and a little thing that you shake, you know, like, doesn't have the same effect with my makeup brush bag. But that thing that you shake and it has like a sort of almost maraca type sound. I don't know what that instrument's called, but you know what I mean. It's just that and the Sugababes voices. Fantastic harmonies, wonderfully sung. And the record, I think, intentionally has this like very old school feel, as if it's being played on an old record. Very nice to be so, very nice comfort listening, you know. And that wraps up Catfights and Spotlights. Definitely one of my favourite Sugababes albums of all time. Definitely the third lineup's best work as well. Reminds me very much of a pivotal time in my life of growing up. And this album on the whole is very classy. It takes a risk by being not so commercial and radio friendly with its sound, in the respect that it didn't quite fit like the contemporary pop bubble, I guess. But this album was a huge accomplishment, I think, for the girls. Even if it wasn't commercially that successful, critically it was very well received. And I feel like with this album, they were able to sort of finally escape the ghost of Muttiah past. On Change, it kind of felt a bit like Muttiah's presence was sort of missed, and that they were trying to shoehorn Amel into like that Muttiah role. On Catfights, I think Amel flourishes so much more and sounds so much more comfortable, and the work on this album really suits her voice. Vocally, they all sound amazing actually. Like, so polished, so together as well. Catfights is a real gem, and it is a shame that because it didn't sell as well as the record label had hoped, it kind of just got a bit dismissed and forgotten about. And I think that's a shame, because this album has some fantastic material on it, some of their best material across all lineups, and it's a shame that its legacy is kind of marred by how it did. But Catfights and Spotlights will forever hold a very special place in my heart. I really love listening to it, especially in the autumn time as well. I often actually end up listening to it when it comes to the 20th of October. I do tend to stick this album on, you know, mark the anniversary, because I fell in love with this album straight away when I first heard it, and I still love it now. Speaking of the 20th of October, I can't really see it very well, but I actually, in the CD case, still have the receipt from when I bought it from Woolworths. I don't know if you can read it, but it says the 20th of October 2008. The writing is incredibly faded. Because obviously this is a 12-year-old, no, nearly 13-year-old receipt actually now, that's lived its life in my CD case ever since the day I bought it. But yeah, this album is one I'll always cherish. Looking back on it, it's aged so well, and if you're watching this video and you've never listened to it before, hopefully I may have inspired you to check it out. So, thank you very much for joining for another edition of ElliXia's Discography Dives. I hope you've had a good time. If you haven't, I'm sorry, but no refunds because you didn't pay. At least you got to look at my gorgeous face for the last however long this video is. Don't forget to tune in next week when we will be discussing 2010's, how do I put this nicely? Don't forget to tune in next week when we discuss 2010's final album to date, Sweet 7. Boy, oh boy, this is going to be... Brace yourselves, because I have a lot to say about this record. The penultimate episode in this Discography Dive series, because I will be doing a bonus episode afterwards, because there's a few other releases and standalone tracks to discuss as well. But of course, thank you very much for tuning in once again. I've been ElliXia Q Valentine, your hostess with the mostess, and of course, please book me. Mwah.